Hi, I'm Derek Robinson. I'm a senior technical online course developer here at InterSystems. And in this video, we're going to take a quick look at the Health Connect Cloud source control workflow and how, specifically in this case, Sam, an interface engineer building an HL7 service, can get that service into the source control workflow and eventually add it to his dev deployment and then eventually his organization's test and live productions as well. But for this video, we're mainly going to focus on getting an interface branch created, making some changes to that interface, and getting it into the source control workflow, meaning merging it into the dev deployment. So to start here, I have three tabs open. I've got this GitLab window. I've got my source control. I've got my Health Connect Cloud set of instances, and I've got the management portal. So first with the GitLab, we have a project here that I've got labeled learning, but this would map to your organization's GitLab repository and project that has been set up for you by the InterSystems Cloud Delivery team. In the InterSystems Cloud Services portal, I've got three deployments of Health Connect Cloud here. I have a dev, a test, and a live deployment. And then I have the management portal open for my dev deployment. And as you can see here, I'm logged in with the user Sam demo. This is to simulate the Sam persona that I am going to be, playing here as the person building this HL7 service and trying to add it into my organization's dev development or development branch. So the first thing that you're going to want to do whenever you have a new developer or engineer starting work on some interface components is that you'd like to go into that deployment, the dev deployment, and you want to go to productions on the left side of the screen. Here you can create a production and namespace for that developer or engineer, a personal namespace that they will use for interface work. So as you can see here, I've already created Sam1, which is the one that I'll be using in this demo video. But it's very easy to create one. You can just enter your cursor into the production name there and create a new production and namespace for an individual developer or engineer. Then importantly, you need to go to connect users on the left side and make sure that the users that you need to have access to that namespace have the appropriate access. So in this case, the Sam demo user is who I'm logged in as, and I make sure that that user has access to the appropriate namespaces, in particular this Sam1 namespace that I'll be using in this video. So next, what we can do is we can go over to the namespace in the management portal. So as we navigate from this Sam demo, we make sure that we're in the Sam1 namespace, which I am here, and it brings us to this production. Now, the most important thing to start with is you need to locate the embedded Git menu here, which is in the top right corner. And when you do this, there's going to be settings that you can configure. And so let's take a look at what these settings look like. The window opens up a little bit large, but I'll bring it into frame here. And so there's a whole bunch of things here that you can refer to documentation for specifics on what you should set these fields to. But one of the important concepts is mappings. And this is currently what I have as the best configured mappings, but you can refer to documentation for what InterSystems currently recommends as the way to configure these mappings. And your onboarding team is likely to help you set these up as well. But what these do is they really tell the CI/CD pipelines within GitLab and Health Connect Cloud where to pull different files from and how to make sure they end up in the right spot. So as you can see, I have CLS, for example, InterSystems class files being pulled and identified in the source folder here, which is where it will look to get those files and transport them to the appropriate deployment. So earlier in this course, you've seen items such as the protected branches and the way that those work with protected namespaces. And so really, you've got your development, test, and live or prod systems that are the protected systems where these pipelines automatically deploy new code. And so that's kind of what's happening here is identifying these mappings to make sure the system knows what files it should be looking for whenever it makes merges into these protected branches. So we'll save these settings here and we can close out of this. And then before you get started working, what you'll want to do is you'll want to import all with the force icon here. And what this will do is this will ensure that you're pulling the latest from your source of truth branch, which in most cases will be your live or production branch. You want Sam to start here with a copy of what is the current source of truth in the live environment. And so I already have pretty much the source of truth here. As you can see, nothing really changed. And so we're now good to go with Sam having a namespace configured and ready to start doing interface work. And the first step that he'll take once he's ready to start this is to create a new interface branch. So in the embedded Git menu over here in the top right, you can click Create a New Branch. And you can enter a name for this branch. So here we will do HL7 service is what we'll call this, and we'll press OK. So now Sam has just created a branch called HL7 service, and now without even changing this screen or navigating elsewhere, his personal namespace is now connected in source control via source control hooks to that HL7 sample or service branch. Now, importantly, this has only happened so far locally on the embedded Git within his management portal. So nothing has actually been pushed up to the server just yet. But let's just run through a really basic example where we can create just a dummy HL7 service here where we'll make it maybe an HTTP type service, and we'll call it HL7 service. Just really basic, and we'll really do nothing else here. We'll choose no. Actually, let's choose a target. We'll use this HL7 router that already exists, and we'll make this, let's say, schema 231, and the port number we'll make 1224. I don't know. That's just a dummy for right now, but we'll press OK to ensure that that is created. And there we go. That's now updated. So as Sam continues to work, he can continue building out in this personal namespace, build the unit of work that he is assigned and is currently working on. And this is an important distinction, is that you really want to limit each interface branch to a unit of work that you would want to be isolated on its own. So you really don't want Sam to try to build 4, 5, 6 different components that might be ready at different times in this same interface branch. You really should isolate this to a unit of work where this branch can capture that item within your integration. So let's say Sam is completed with that. He's all set. What we can do is we can come back to the embedded Git menu and we'll press this sync button. And so now when this sync menu pops up, you'll see that the source control hooks here already know and they can recognize what has changed. In this case, the production class file has been modified, and we can add a commit message here. So I can say added HL7 service to production. And what I can do is press sync. And at this point, after this sync is completed, you'll see a success message here. And now things have been pushed to the actual repository. So if we go over to GitLab, we can actually now go look under the code section, for example, under branches, and we can see now that there is a new branch called HL7 service. If we click this branch, we can see there's been a commit, and right there at the top, we can see that Sam Demo is the author and HL7 service was added to the production. So as we continue going through this, Sam can make iterations on this. Ideally, if it's a totally new thing, he would make a new branch. But as he works on his service, he can make iterations and add these into source control and then commit them or sync them through the embedded Git plugin, and he can get those synced into the branch. So when it's time to then move this into development, what he's going to do is he's going to create a merge request. So as he goes over to merge request in the left-hand side here, what you can do is press new merge request. And here what's happening is Sam is going to merge his HL7 service branch into the development branch. So by doing this, he can click the source branch within the learning project, HL7 service, and the target branch will be development. So you can click compare branches and continue, and you can have the title that's kind of automatically derived right there, and you can add a description as well. You know, this service takes HL7 2.3.1 messages and sends them to the HL7 router, let's say. You know, whatever your description might be that is useful for your source control workflow, you could add that helpful description there. Optionally, you can assign this to someone, assign a reviewer, tie it to a milestone, add labels, and things like that. One important distinction here with the source control workflow that's being considered best practice is do not check this item to delete the source branch. A lot of times in certain workflows, you might check this to clean up that branch and get rid of it after the merge is completed. But in this case, we want to keep this branch because Sam's going to put this into development. And then once it's been vetted and tested, we're going to come back to this branch to put it into test, and then come back to this branch again to put it into the live or production system. So that's a little bit of a difference where we're not going to take all of dev and move it to test and all of test to move it to live. We're going to preserve this branch so that it can be pushed into test, merged into development, merged into test, and then merged into the production system separately So we don't want to delete it upon this merge request. So we can create the merge request. And as you can see at the bottom there, you could also review changes before doing so. And if you'd like to add any additional comments here, you can do so. But really then this is now going to be on the plate of the maintainer who can accept this merge request and be able to process it through. And the same options here exist for that maintainer who can be able to choose those items, but we're going to keep this just the way it is. And so now as we go to merge this in, we see that it has been merged. And now what I mentioned before, that pipeline is running, which is going to take new things from the development environment. Anything new in the dev branch is connected to a protected namespace, which is the dev namespace and specifically the learning namespace on the development deployment. And it's automatically deploying code. So with any of our protected namespaces and branches, these pipelines are able to push the latest right to that environment so that you can immediately access it. And so what the way that you can see that now is if we go back to the management portal, I will switch to the learning namespace from the SAM1 namespace. The learning namespace is sort of our protected master namespace here. And you'll get a message up the top that actually warns you that this is marked as read-only, so you cannot modify this production. But as we can see here, this now has the service that I just added, the HL7 service. That's now here in our protected read-only namespace because that merge request was successful and pushed through by the maintainer. So now Sam has basically been able to do his interface work in his interface branch, get it into his dev environment, and this is where he can do more testing against other things that have been promoted to dev already, make sure everything looks good, and if there's no changes to be made, he can continue this process by merging into test and eventually merging into live, ensuring to follow the organizational workflows and best practices that your organization has outlined for your Health Connect Cloud source control strategy. So hopefully this gives you a quick little tutorial of how this works with the embedded Git plugin in the management portal. And this is how you can easily get one of your interface, units of work merged into dev and start that source control process in Health Connect Cloud.